My pet cat Snuffles had a habit of staying in the attic for extended periods of time. It wasn't unusual for her to be up there so late on at night when I wanted to go to bed. However, if I didn't commit to the usual routine of kicking her out for the night, she would at some point, usually around 3 a.m., come into my room, hop on my bed, and meow in my face until I woke up to stroke her. I had work tomorrow, so for her to do this would be very much of an inconvenience. She was always a smart cat, and had this really funny way of climbing down ladders, where she would roll around the first step, run down 3 with scramping claws, and then jump off the rest until she would land with a fairly heavy bump. I decided to lure her down from the attic with her usual favorite toy, a small ball covered in a tuft of feathers with a jingly bell at the end. The jingles drove her completely crazy, and I knew as soon as she heard it, she would come scuttling across the attic and try to attack the toy. The string was long enough for me to chuck up there, but I wouldn't be able to see her grab onto it. I couldn't just go up there, as, for one, my cat hated being picked up, so trying to get her down that way was pointless. And, well, half climbing a ladder and half playing with a cat was a hazard waiting to happen. I walked underneath the attic hole and tried the light switch. I watched the room above flash like lightning before the light bulb burst, and it was left in darkness. Wonderful, I muttered to myself. I knew the light bulb was going to break at some point. It had been a while since I'd last changed it, so I wasn't worried. I got hold of the stick of the toy before flinging the thing up into the attic. I heard its soft thud and jingle as the toy collided with the floor. I then wiggled it around for a bit. It took a couple of moments. Then I heard it, the sound of soft, scuttling paws across floorboards. I knew my cat would take the bait. She always did. The sound stopped when they reached the midway point of the attic. Then it was replaced by a loud pound and some scratching. I tried to pull the toy like you would a fishing rod so I could bait her. It was stuck. I assumed it was latched onto my cat's paw as she played around with it. I could still hear constant jingling, and every so often another thud. Feel free to come down anytime soon, I chuckled quietly to myself, tugging on the toy, finding my cat surprisingly strong. The end wouldn't budge. I needed to lead her to the opening of the attic. Then, as usual, she would get the hint and come down on her own. I recognized that sound anywhere. My beloved Snuffles. I get the point, Snuffles, just come down already, I told her before I felt something soft and fluffy circle my ankles. I looked down to see Snuffles pressing herself against my skin, meowing at me. What the? I looked back up into the darkness. I could still hear scratching and the faint jingling of the toy as something was playing with it. I looked back to my cat, whose eyes had dilated as they looked towards the opening, and suddenly, I watched as all the hairs on her back stood up, and she hissed at the ceiling. I dropped hold of the toy as it hung in the air, still attached to whatever was holding it. Then there was silence. I could hear my heart thumping in my head, and for a moment I was frozen on the spot. Snuffles bolted. Then the scratching came closer to the edge. It was heavier now, like it was using its nails to drag itself across the floor. I didn't even look to see what it was, as I ran down the stairs hearing something clonk against the metal of the ladder, like it was trying to pull itself down. I heard its nails scrape against the metal, and I was out the door by the time it hit the second floor, with a very loud bang. I rushed to my neighbor's house and called the police. There was no way I was going back in that house with that thing. When they finally arrived, there was no sign of anything inside my house. I could have believed that I was just imagining things. Except that I found the cat toy, covered in some kind of black, oozy liquid, and my floorboards completely shredded.